The muffled sound of bars sliding and gears spinning could be heard as the door unlocked. "You four stand by in the hall," said Lockwood to the security in the room. The group made room for the Marines to pass by. The Marine who had been leading them pulled the door shut behind them. The sound of the door locking signaled that the room was secured. Leo and Gideon took up opposite sides of the room. The cell was slightly colder than in the hallway. The room was fairly large, allowing for various locked cabinets and medical equipment. The viewing window they had been looking through was a mirror on the inside of the room. "Have a name? Care to explain what you were doing in orbit of Luna? Why did you attack and murder innocent people?" the chief asked, staring deep into the blue eyes of the unknown man. Their face showed anger and annoyance. There was a pregnant pause before the mysterious man spoke. "My name is Elias. I was scanning the planet for something. I didn't murder anyone who didn't deserve it," he said sarcastically. "Is that some kind of joke?" Lockwood said, unmoved by Elias's attempt to get into his head. "Is that something the metal objects you nearly killed yourself crawling to?" Elias looked away from the chief. In the blink of an eye, Lockwood closed the distance and grabbed Elias's face and turned it. "You, Will, look at me when I'm talking to you." The chief let his face go and took a few steps back. "Yes, they are known as artifacts to my people," Elias said, his voice now shaky. The chief narrowed his eyes. "Your people?" "Yes. We are called the Starborn." The faint sound of Amara writing could be heard behind Lockwood. "Where are your people? What planet do you come from?" Lockwood asked. Elias started to chuckle, but it died in his throat as he looked at Amara, her eyes ripping him apart. "My people come from all over the galaxy. Only the chosen become Starborn." "How curious," Dr. Amara said, eyes filled with skepticism. Lockwood continued. "Why did you attack the shuttle? 5 of the doctor's staff are dead, along with 4 innocent civilians who needed medical attention. What justification did you have to end those lives, murderer?" Lockwood's words cut deep into Elias's mind. "Murderer?" Elias asked, confused. He was cut off by Lockwood. "Killing in cold blood makes you a murderer." "Murderer," this time putting more emphasis into it. Elias tried to get up, yelling, "I am not a murderer, I am a Starborn." Before he could fully get up, his shoulders were pushed down by the 2 Marines who had been standing cloaked near his bedside. Elias was pushed back down, his heart racing. A cold jolt shot through Elias. How long had they been there? His eyes scanned the room, panic rising. "Be careful, Elias. They won't be so gentle next time." The chief threatened. "I'll ask one. More. Time." "Why did you kill them?" Lockwood asked, unshaken. "Because they were humans. The collision disabled the cloaking on my ship, and I thought..." Dr. Amara spoke up. "You thought you would get away with it. In your arrogance, you didn't expect to be brought to your knees before you could hide like the coward you are." Realization suddenly filled Elias's mind. I did. How pathetic," Dr. Amara said, cold and uncaring. "Take some time to think about what you've done. We'll be back to chat more. Oh, and if you try anything, the Marines will see to it that you never walk again," Lockwood said before walking to the door. Hearing that, Leo turned and knocked 3 times on the door. The locking mechanism clicked shortly after. "Think about all that you know, Starborn. Secure this room. Make sure Mr. Elias is comfortable," Lockwood ordered. "Yes, Chief," the Marines replied, As they exited, Dr. Amara turned to stare into Elias's eyes once more as the doors slowly closed. Part 9. The door locked and the group walked down the hallway. The only thing that could be heard was the sound of their footsteps and the sound of fabric rubbing against fabric as their legs moved. Stanford led them down to the floor's lobby and gestured to a meeting room. "Don't worry, Chief. We will make sure he's comfortable," Stanford joked. The group made their way through the metal door into the meeting room. The floor was a gray carpet, and the walls were white with various pictures of landscapes. On the far side, there was a large window. Below the station was a lush planet that didn't look too different from the Earth of old. In the center of the room was a large wooden table with metal legs. Surrounding it were 6 leather chairs. You could cut the tension in the room with a knife, as the 4 of them each chose a seat. Lockwood sat at the head of the table by the window, Amara next to him on his left. Gideon and Leo took the end 2 seats nearest the door. Leo broke the silence. "Well, Chief, I have to say, your questioning is as scary as ever," she said, smirking at the older man. "You were pushing pretty hard, Chief. Elias didn't seem to appreciate being called a murderer," Gideon said in his usual monotone voice. "What did you make of that, Amara?" Lockwood asked curiously. "To put it plainly, I think he's full of shit. Starborn, only the chosen. Sounds a little too far-fetched," Amara replied in a dismissive tone. "If it weren't for the ship and the armor he was wearing, I would agree with you. What if there is some truth to his words? He was in possession of mysterious artifacts that give readings that don't make any sense. This is becoming far more troublesome than I had expected." Lockwood sat back in his chair and turned to face the window. He put his hand up to his chin and tapped his index finger on his lips. Leo and Gideon exchanged curious glances. "We'll give it an hour, then go again. Gideon, you will take point this time around." "Yes, Chief." The chief turned back around to face his friend and captains. "What has happened here is not to be discussed till we understand the full picture. Understood?" "Yes, Chief," Leo and Gideon replied. "Of course," Amara responded. "Gideon, do you have any info on the ship, armor, or weapons?" the chief asked, sitting forward, putting his elbows on the table. "Negative, Chief. We cannot ascertain the origins of any of it. It is totally alien. Jade Industries is one of the most advanced companies in the settled systems. But these things are leagues ahead of anything we have." "Thank you, Gideon. All these items will be sent to the research division for further analysis." "Amara, do you have any thoughts, input you'd like to add?" "No, Ashton. All that matters to me is that he gets what he deserves. Calling us humans like it was an insult," Dr. Amara replied, sounding annoyed. Lockwood sighed. In due time. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. It was Sergeant Stanford. "Excuse my interruption, Chief. There is a situation with Elias," he said urgently. The 4 quickly made their way out of the room and followed Stanford. As they rushed down the hall, they could see the 2 Marines at the door standing, rifles ready. As they turned to look in the room, it wasn't a pretty sight. Elias was being held down by 4 Marines, while the other 2 assisted a nurse from the ground. "What happened, Sergeant?" Lockwood barked. The nurse was changing his fluids and had to take some samples of blood. Suddenly, Elias struck the nurse, yelling, "Get away from me, filth!" "Open this door now. Amara, stay out here," Lockwood ordered. The door swung open, and Lockwood pushed into the room with speed and aggression, followed by his 2 captains. Stand aside, Chief Lockwood barked. The 4 Marines let Elias go and drew their rifles. Gideon and Leo drew their Nexus pistols. The 6 of them were all trained on Elias. The moment Elias saw the chief moving toward him in a blur, he froze. Fear filled him as the chief grabbed him and flung him from the bed, tearing out tubes and wires. The sound of medical equipment and shifting footsteps filled the room as Elias slid and hit the wall. "Explain yourself," the chief demanded, advancing towards Elias. Time slowed down for Elias, his eyes wide in fear of the human before him, a tall, dark, and imposing silhouette. Again. How did it happen again? Who is this monster of a human? As the chief moved closer, his face was revealed. Subtle tan skin, hazel eyes, cold and uncaring, sharp of features, brown hair threaded with gray. He had seen this man before. The look in his eyes burned into Elias's mind. I remember. It was my second time through Unity. I was being hunted. My fellow Starborn were slaughtered by mere mortals. How did he find me again? Is he a Starborn too? The hunter? His thoughts were interrupted as he felt the strong hands of Lockwood grabbing him by his medical gown. I'm too weak, Elias thought. In one last move of desperation, he tried to send a shockwave at Lockwood, anything to push him away. Too slow, was all Lockwood said before redirecting Elias's arm toward the ceiling and slamming him into the cold floor. The last thing he saw was that horrifying, familiar face looking down at him before slipping into unconsciousness. I remember. Part 10, Stardate. Unknown. Location. Unknown. Mission. Kill or capture enemy Starborn. They are responsible for the total loss of the hospital outpost. Show no mercy. Seek and destroy, the onboard AI said. The roar of the engines grew louder as the ship entered the atmosphere. 1 minute till landing. The enemy airfield has been completely destroyed. There remains an unknown amount of enemies hiding in and around the facility, the AI said. The 3 headhunters stood in the bay as the ship finished its landing sequence. The sound of the ship powering down was replaced by the sound of strong winds and alarms in the distance. As the bay doors opened, a truly terrifying scene was revealed. Standing in the bay, backlit by red light, were 3 Jade Empire headhunters. On the left was a tall, slender figure holding 2 pistols. 2 Nexus 3s were unholstered at her sides. Staff Sergeant Leo was bouncing in place, ready to strike when the order was given. On the right, standing slightly shorter, was another human. In their hands was a mag sniper rifle. Gunnery Sergeant Gideon double-checked his sniper and primed his jetpack to get to higher ground. In the center was Chief Lockwood, holding a heavily modified Kodama submachine gun. Armor-piercing rounds and smart targeting, a truly evil product of war. The 3 were clad in black armor, exoskeletons to improve their already unnatural speed and strength. The white spades on their shoulders were dimly lit by the bay light. Their helmets were equipped with quad night vision goggles, 4 tubes with glowing green lights. Their mere presence was a death sentence to their enemies. Quietly, Lockwood gave the command: seek and destroy. In the blink of an eye, the trio took off towards the hospital. The Starborn. They possess otherworldly power and experience from their many lives. To some, they were an unstoppable force. To the headhunters, they were nothing more than pests, vermin that should be purged. Staff Sergeant Leo danced across the courtyard with grace and elegance. She was the fastest headhunter in the Empire. She was a blur to anyone who wasn't augmented, jumping and twirling in the air and unleashing hot armor-piercing rain upon the helpless starborn. Her dual Nexus 3 pistols singing the song of the apocalypse. On the ridge overlooking the same courtyard was Gideon. Aim, fire, adjust. Aim, fire, adjust. His movements were that of a well-oiled machine, never missing his target, never flinching as stray rounds flew past him. The video feed from his helmet was shared to his two teammates, giving them even more of an advantage on the battlefield. Close behind Leo was the Chief. The smart targeting on his Kodama allowed him to kill with ruthless efficiency. Only 5 minutes had passed since the trio began their onslaught. Meanwhile, Elias stood in an elevator with two other starborn. One of them was his mentor, Ashley. She was the one who had trained him in the ways of the starborn. She lost count of how many universes she had been to and how much power she gained. Ashley was the commander of the starborn in that galaxy. As they stepped from the elevator, it was a horror scene. The large interior of the lobby was dark. The Empire's orbital bombardments knocked out the main power plant. The lobby was 3 floors high. Walkways lined the outer edges, leaving the center open. The windows at the top were shattered and glass littered the floor. They could hear the faint sound of gunfire and cries for help. Amongst the sounds was something else. Something evil giggled in the dark, demonic and gleeful. The trio froze as the laughter echoed from all directions. Shivers ran down Elias's spine. "Something is wrong," he said in a shaking voice, fear gripping him. "Stand fast," commanded Ashley. The sound of running could be heard around them, right next to them and far away at the same time. Suddenly, a flash of blue illuminated Elias's and Ashley's visors. As Elias looked up, the starborn that had been with them was standing still, their weapon lazily dangling at their side. As Elias looked further up, he saw that the starborn's head had been severed from their body. As the lifeless body fell to its knees, it dematerialized into stardust. Elias was frozen in place by the fear of death. "Elias, run!" were Ashley's last words. Her body was slammed into the wall by a shoulder charge from Leo. The wall cracked by the force of Ashley's body being crushed. Elias looked down at Ashley's body. Her helmet had been shattered, and her body was mangled by the force behind the strike. He could see the look of fear in eyes, blood and tears running down her face. He slowly looked up at Leo, who was giggling, laughing at him. "Look at this one, Chief," Leo said in a mocking tone. Appearing out of thin air before him was Lockwood, crouched and staring at him. The 4 green eyes from his night vision made him look like a monster straight from someone's worst nightmare. Lockwood ripped Elias's helmet off and hurled it across the dark lobby. Lockwood grabbed Elias's face and turned it left and right, examining this so-called all-powerful starborn. Letting him go, the Chief took his helmet off. Cold, calculating eyes pierced Elias's soul. How pathetic. You starborn think you're something special. You are as fragile and weak as any other human. Lockwood's words cut like knives, his face forever burned into Elias's mind. Tell your friends, if there are any left, to never come into our universe again. I was all Elias could get out before getting kicked in the face by Leo and falling to the floor. The last thing he heard was their footsteps walking away, crunching on the broken glass. "Mission complete. We are RTB," Lockwood said. "Aw, it's over already? How disappointing," Leo said, twirling her pistols before holstering them at her sides. End of Jade Origins, Chapter 2, Part 8, 9 and 10. Thanks for listening.